Florida is finally banning this from our beautiful blue skies, and this time it's not just talk. Lawmakers are actually taking action to put a stop to it. For years, people have looked up at those white streaks in the sky, arguing they're more than just water vapor. Now, Florida is stepping up to investigate and shut it down for good. Now, whether you think this is just some wild conspiracy theory or the government is actually messing with Florida's weather, it doesn't matter. I got hard facts that are gonna make you question everything. And if you live in Florida, you've seen it with your own eyes. Chemtrails crisscrossing the sky, getting worse every single year. Today, I'm breaking it all down, where these chemtrails came from, how the government has been running secret experiments on all of us for decades, and what Florida is doing to finally put a stop to it. Let's jump in. All right, let's talk about chemtrails. You've seen them, the long white streaks in the sky left behind by planes. Some people say they're just harmless condensation trails or contrails, nothing more than hot exhaust hitting cold air. But others aren't buying that. They believe these trails are actually chemicals being sprayed for reasons the government won't admit. People really started noticing these back in the 1990s when those streaks stopped disappearing like they used to. Instead of fading away in a few minutes, they'd stick around, spread out, and turn a perfectly blue sky into a hazy mess. That's when folks started asking questions. And then in 1996, the US Air Force dropped a report that made things even sketchier. You gotta love our government. The report was called Weather as a Force Multiplier, Owning the Weather in 2025. And yeah, that title alone is a little scary. It flat out talked about controlling the weather for military advantage, mentioning things like cloud seeding, storm manipulation, and modifying the atmosphere. So basically, they were looking into ways to weaponize the weather. Now, let's be real. If the military was openly talking about this stuff back in 1996, that means they'd probably already been working on it for years before that. And if they were willing to put it in a public report, imagine what kind of classified experiments were going on behind the scenes. That report made a lot of people start paying attention to the sky. And ever since, chemtrails have been a hot topic. If this was all just some crazy conspiracy theory, why is Florida banning it? Makes you think, doesn't it? But come on, would the government really do something like this? You already know the answer, yes, and they've done it more than once. The government has a long history of running secret experiments on its own people without telling anybody. Here's 3 that are gonna blow your mind. Back in 1950, the US Navy decided to use San Francisco as a test site for biological warfare. No warning, no permission, they just sprayed bacteria over an entire city to see what would happen. They pumped a cloud of Serratia marcescens and Bacillus globii, however the hell you say that, off the coast, and they let the wind carry it into town. People breathed it in, drank it in their water, and went about their lives completely unaware. Now, not long after, hospitals started reporting weird infections, including a rare urinary tract infection that killed at least 1 guy. The government later claimed the bacteria was harmless. Yeah, tell that to the guy who died. Now, fast forward to the late 50s, and the US Army Chemical Corps ran Operation LAC, short for Large Area Coverage, which is just a fancy way of saying, let's spray chemicals all over huge parts of the USA and see what happens. They flew planes across the Midwest, parts of Canada, and the South, releasing zinc cadmium sulfide into the air. Why? To study how chemical and biological weapons might spread. Nobody asked for permission and nobody knew it was happening. Now, this third one is especially messed up. In the 1950s and 60s, the Army ran secret tests in St. Louis targeting mostly black neighborhoods. They set up blowers on rooftops, at schools, even in station wagons, spewing zinc cadmium sulfide, again, into the air. People in these neighborhoods were breathing in chemicals they didn't even know existed. Years later, some of them reported serious health issues. But hey, the government said it was totally safe, again, even though they never bothered telling people they were part of an experiment. So when people ask, would the government really spray chemicals in the air? Yeah, they already have multiple times, and they didn't admit to it until years later. So why wouldn't they do it again? But I know what you're thinking. Yeah, that was in the past. The government wouldn't do anything like that today, right? Right? Well, let's keep going. In 2019, Bill Gates backed a Harvard-funded study that proposed spraying reflective particles into the sky to block sunlight and cool the Earth. The idea? Control the climate by dimming the sun. Sounds like something out of a sci-fi movie, right? They called it stratospheric aerosol injection, SAI. And while they claim it's just an experiment, plenty of people had questions. What happens if it goes wrong? Could it mess up weather patterns, crops, or ecosystems? No one really knows, and yet they're seriously considering it. Fast forward to 2022, and suddenly the US government isn't even hiding their interest in weather manipulation anymore. The Biden administration openly discussed geoengineering, particularly solar radiation management, SRM, which is basically the same idea Gates was pushing. The goal? Reflect sunlight back into space to slow down global warming. Sounds good in theory, but here's the problem. Who gets to control the weather? And what happens if this so-called solution causes droughts, hurricanes, or food shortages in other parts of the world? The idea of governments playing God with climate is straight up terrifying. They say it's about fighting climate change, but history tells us one thing. Whenever the government gets a new toy, they find a way to use it for control. And now they're admitting they're looking into weather manipulation. So you tell me, should we just trust them on this, or should we be asking a lot more questions? But where does the bill that's supposed to ban chemtrails stand right now in Florida? And will it even pass? Well, Senator Ileana Garcia, a Republican from Miami, is leading the charge with Senate Bill 56, aiming to put the kibosh on any weather modification shenanigans in the Sunshine State, baby. So what's the deal with this bill? Basically, it wants to ban the injection, release, or dispersion of chemicals into Florida's atmosphere if the goal is to mess with the weather, temperature, or how much sunlight we get. Think of it as Florida saying, keep your hands off our skies, bro. But it doesn't stop there. The bill also plans to set up a system where Floridians can report any suspicious sky activities. See something weird up there? You'll be able to call, email, or even send a letter to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. They'll track these reports and, if needed, loop in the Department of Health or the Division of Emergency Management. And for those thinking about breaking the rules, beware. The bill proposes fines up to $100,000 for anyone caught trying to play weather god without permission. That's a hefty price for messing with some clouds. Now, where does SB 56 stand in the legislative process? As of now, it's been making its way through the Senate committees. The Senate Appropriations Committee on Agriculture, Environment, and General Government gave it a thumbs up with a 10-2 vote. Next up, it heads to the Senate Rules Committee. If it clears that hurdle, it'll move on to the full Senate for a vote. The bill has seen bipartisan support, which is great, with both Republicans and Democrats showing interest. Senator Jason Pizzo, a Democrat from North Miami, even admitted he was skeptical at first, but ended up supporting the bill, saying, I came in here to tease you, you're walking out of here with a yes vote. Good for him, man. I got a lot of respect for people that can change their mind when presented with the facts. But unfortunately, not everyone's on board. Some folks still argue that those white lines behind the planes are just harmless water vapor, not chemicals. Organizations like the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, have stated that they don't engage in weather modification and that solar geoengineering isn't happening at any significant scale. That statement doesn't make me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, but regardless, Florida's SB 56 is pushing forward. The scariest thing about the government, Bill Gates, or the US Army messing with the weather isn't just that they're doing it in secret, it's what happens if they actually succeed. Let's be real, blocking out the sun sounds like something straight out of a supervillain's playbook. But these people are seriously trying to make it happen. And if they do, global cooling, not global warming, will be the real disaster. Think about it. The sun is literally the source of all life on Earth. It grows our food, keeps us warm, and controls everything from ocean currents to weather patterns. Now imagine some brilliant scientist or politician deciding to tamper with that. Let's say they go ahead and spray particles into the atmosphere to reflect sunlight, thinking they're saving the planet. What happens if they overdo it? What happens if they cool the Earth too much? We've seen what even minor cooling can do. When Mount Pinatubo erupted in 1991, it released enough particles into the air to drop global temperatures by 1 degree for over a year. That 1 degree drop led to crop failures, food shortages, and extreme cold weather in some areas. And that was just one volcano. Now imagine governments intentionally trying to dim the sun on a massive scale. Global cooling would be devastating. Shorter growing seasons would wreck food production. Colder temperatures would increase energy demand, making heating costs skyrocket. And let's not forget, historically, colder periods have been linked to famine, disease, and mass die-offs. Yet, instead of admitting that messing with the sun is a horrible idea, politicians and billionaires are pushing harder for these experiments. The real question is, why? This is exactly why I love Florida. Not only do I get to live in paradise, but we have a state government that actually prioritizes freedom and passes common sense laws that protect its people. They aren't just going along with whatever global elites or big government want. They're actually listening to Floridians and taking action. And let's be real, if chemtrails are just a conspiracy theory, then why would anyone oppose banning them? If nothing shady's going on, then this law shouldn't be a big deal, right? So I'll be paying close attention to who fights this bill and, more importantly, who's funding them. Because if certain politicians or organizations suddenly start freaking out over a simple bill to keep Florida's skies clean, you gotta ask why. Now, am I 100% convinced that chemtrails are real? I'll be honest, not completely. Even after laying out all these facts about the government's long history of secret experiments, I still don't know for sure what's going on up there. But here's the thing, even if chemtrails aren't real, what's the harm in banning them? Nobody should be dumping unknown chemicals into the sky either way, so I'm absolutely in support of this bill. And I gotta say, shout out to Elon Musk for buying X, because let's be honest, if he hadn't, we'd still be getting spoon-fed the same old mainstream media BS, pushing whatever agenda their political donors tell them to. Now at least, we have a platform where people can actually ask questions, share real info, and expose corruption without getting silenced. And that's where I heard about this next story. Click here to see if this Florida county is stealing your property taxes. Florida counties have been handing out millions of taxpayer dollars to NGOs with little to no oversight. And when one commissioner tried to audit the books, the government shut it down fast. What are they hiding? Click here to find out.